Of the Oregon City Commission to order for Wednesday, April 1st, 2015. I'm going to call the roll.
Sure. Commissioner Shaw?
Here.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner West is absent this evening. Commissioner Pauley?
Here.
And Mayor Holliday?
Here. So if you'll rise and join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I am going to make a change in the order of the agenda tonight. Commissioner Pauley has a personal issue that she needs to deal with, so we are going to move up the, is it 15186? Is that the sign ordinance? Hello? Yes, 15186. So we're going to start with that. Then we'll come back to citizen comments and the ceremonies, proclamations, and other hoo-ha. Mr. Conkle, I believe this one's yours, right?
It is. I'm trying to catch up here. Surprised you with that one.
Good evening. My name is Laura Tarway. I'm a planner with the city. As you know, it was one of the commission goals to update our signage standards for the city. So look at how many signs could be on private property and in the right-of-way, how big those signs can be, where they can be placed, material, and so forth. Actually. So the city has initiated an aggressive public involvement campaign asking the public what they would like to see as far as signage standards are involved. The PowerPoint should pop up in a few minutes. We met with anyone and everyone that would talk to us. We have had quite a few meetings. I think we're on 39 now. We've had Twitter, Facebook, you name it. We've tried to reach everybody and get their opinion. We created a community advisory team. They met and gave us recommendations for signage standards. Staff took those recommendations and created a draft code. That draft code went before the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission recommended approval to the City Commission in October. So I'm going to give you a brief update of our sign code and then our implementation as well before we ask for your approval this evening. So the first thing we're going to talk about are signs in the right-of-way. The current sign code does not allow any signs in the right-of-way. The proposed sign code will allow it in 3 different forms. One is cross-street banners in 2 locations. The second would be banners on streetlight poles, or those ones you'll kind of see on the side of the road. And the third are A-frame signs, so they would be those sandwich board type signs that look like this on the sidewalk, on the ground. Our current draft of our code allows 1 per frontage, but in the mixed-use downtown and the Willamette Falls Downtown Design District, you can get up to 3 per property frontage. Here's a zoning map. Let's zoom in a little bit. The mixed-use downtown zoning designation is right here, this greenish color, and Willamette Falls Downtown Design District is adjacent to it with the Willamette Falls Legacy Project. So in those locations, they could have up to 3 A-frame signs within the right-of-way per property, in addition to all the signage that they would be allowed as well. If we want to take a look at the properties downtown, here's a closer look. So regarding A-frames in the right-of-way, if you get up to 3, depending on the number of entrances per property, here you can kind of see how many buildings and property frontages there are. Most of the blocks have multiple properties through them. There's a couple with a large building. If that's multi-tenanted, they would, again, only get 3 per frontage, depending on the number of operating entrances.
Do you want to save questions to the end, or are you taking questions as we go?
Up to you.
Go ahead.
Can you define property? Are you talking about tax lot or building?
The building lot, so tax lot,
Okay.
essentially.
Because the code reads per frontage.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're on the corner, let's say, of High and 7th, you would have 2 frontages.
So you would, if you get a minimum of 1 per frontage, you would get 2, in that case, 1 on High and 1 on 7th, or whatever it is.
Okay, so it's per building then, and then per frontage. Or is it per tax lot? Because some tax lots have more than 1 building on them.
So it would be, here, let's throw up some examples. So on here, sorry with the laser pointer, can't see that on your screen. So say this property right here on the corner of 8th and Main, they would get, depending on how many pedestrian entrances they have, up to 3 here, up to 3 here, and up to 3 here. This one next to it would get up to 3 on that side and up to 3 on that side. So it's not based on the number of buildings, but just on the property dimensions.
The property dimensions.
Mhm.
Okay, and the 3 is only for the downtown.
Yep, so it's only for the mixed-use downtown zoning designation and the Willamette Falls Downtown Design District. So it's pretty much the bottom shelf of the city. So you'll see the landfills in mixed-use downtown, Oregon City Shopping Center, everything on Main Street, and then up through the Willamette Falls property. So properties, say, for example, on 7th or up Malala Avenue would be limited to 1 per frontage in the right-of-way, but they still have options for a variety of signage on their own property as well.
But 1 per frontage in the right-of-way. So if you have a building that's maybe a whole block long, they can only have 1 A-frame for that whole side.
Yep, in the right-of-way. On private property, if you're a commercial zoning designation, you would be able to get a big freestanding sign, and if you're a big property, you may get 2 of those really big, large signs, and then you'll get a smaller version of a sign, think like menu board or something like that, and then you'll get a couple of smaller, less than 6 square foot ancillary signs per frontage. So all of that in addition to the ones in the right-of-way. All right. So I'm going to quickly go through the types of signs that are allowed by zoning designation. So in single-family and two-family residential zones, which is a large portion of the city, there's, again, a variety of signs that we do allow. I'll go through the signage types real quickly. The wall sign are signs flat against a wall. Freestanding signs are signs like pole signs or monument signs that are their own sign structure. Incidental freestanding signs are a smaller version of that, no more than 8 square feet per side, like a menu board or something like that. Projecting signs stick out from the side of a building, say like that one right there, more than a foot. Roof signs sit on the roof of a building, and ancillary sign is just a fancy word for a variety of sign types, but essentially all signs under 6 square feet. Generally, a lot of them are temporary in nature, but they don't have to be.
Okay, hold on. So I guess this is the place where David and I had some conversation about, PMAR, the Portland Metro Area Realtors Association, sent a letter towards the very end of this, just a couple days ago, questioning the issue of the A-frame sign in a residential neighborhood or something like that, and then also time, place, and manner restrictions on political sides. So where did we get with that discussion, Mr. Fraser?
Well, we waited until we got here so that we could have the discussion with the whole group and our attorneys and staff present. So,
Okay,
we'd love to hear your opinions on it, or questions, actually. Maybe.
Is there, Mr. Conkle, I was led to believe that there possibly was already an exemption for the realtors in this code now?
No. So what we had this discussion about how do we deal with real estate signs, advertising signs, for sale signs. The Planning Commission discussed this, and essentially we identified in residential neighborhoods certain days when it was allowed. And I'm drawing a blank off the top of my head. Was it Tuesdays?
And then over the weekend. And those are for only the A-frame signs in the right-of-way. On private property, they're allowed without permits. And also in our proposed code, we now allow bigger versions of those signs. We used to be 4 square feet. Now it's up to 6 to accommodate the real estate industry as well.
The request in the letter that you have, I believe, is that they would like that in commercial areas as well, such as mixed-use downtown. If you have apartments above a real estate, above retail, or
Well, eventually in the multimodal mixed use, poof, that's a big word.
Willamette Falls area.
Willamette Falls Heritage area, we're going to have housing. And, obviously condos and those sorts of things are going to have to change hands. So how are we going to deal with that?
Well, there's what we struggled with is trying to remain the content neutrality. So there's no way to carve out a certain sign type and say on certain days or at all times they can just place signs in the right of way. So they can comply with the code like everyone else and apply for a permit to put signs in the right of way in our commercial areas. There's existing signage. The signage allowances in the commercial zones there are multiple options. So this was discussed by the Planning Commission, and the recommendation you have from them represents, they struggle with this. You know, when you have to be content neutral, it's hard to carve out a real estate sign or a political sign. And when you do, for example, in those neighborhoods on Tuesdays and over the weekends when we've said, you can put up any sign you want. Just because it's targeted for real estate, we can't regulate content. So that sign can say anything. So now, trying to do that in the downtown, let's say we did the same thing. Tuesdays and over the weekends, you can have real estates in all of our districts throughout the city. That goes for everyone. We've struggled to find a way to pigeonhole it to a certain user or a certain type of content.
Mayor, one of the things I want to make sure we don't get too hung up on is the fact that you could still get these. I think the industry can still use these signs. They just have to be permitted.
Correct.
And if you've got multiple condos in a unit in the Pearl District or any other high-density place in Portland, you're going to see those signs. We've all seen them when there are condos turning over. Those are probably permitted, and in this case, that's what they would be.
So could a particular firm, for instance, you know, in the work that I do, I can buy a blanket parking permit for downtown Portland that I just toss on my dashboard. And, you know, it's fairly expensive, but I can do it.
It's transferable.
Yeah.
Essentially.
So the question is, can these real estate companies, can they buy a blanket permit so that it's not specific to a particular address or a particular spot?
Our current system does not allow that because when we review the permit, we're looking at how many entranceways they have and how many signs they're allowed and if they meet the ADA spacing and things like that. So we're looking at site specific.
So let's say my building, I have three public entrances in the mixed use downtown, and I have 3 A-frames. And we go with this transferable permit. Let's say I also own a real estate agency and I have my for lease or for sale sign that I've got my A-frame permit for in the right of way. And now I bring that as a fourth sign to this property because we're doing it by property.
Well, one has to assume that if you're putting it up for sale or for lease, that the third business isn't in operation, isn't going to need their sign.
Well, I don't know that. What if there are 3 businesses on the first floor and there's 4 levels of residential above it? I mean, that's the dilemma, that's the struggle we're having. And then how do you account for that and how do you track that?
Okay.
The good thing about our sign code is it does allow more options than currently. So you can place a sign in the right of way, whereas currently you cannot.
So that was for A-frames.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right?
In the public right of way.
In the public right of way. I think the last time we had this conversation, we were talking about events or various kind of weekend. Well, weekend, I guess, is separate. Maybe that's the thing. But we talked. There was a conversation, I think, about buying a year-long
The right of way permit
for a right-of-way signs.
Which
so
is
that's
step
different than
Which is step 1.
Okay,
You buy a permit to be in the right of way.
anywhere.
And then you buy a permit for the actual sign in the right of way at the location it's placed. So if you have 5 locations downtown that you're going to put signs that you get permission from the property owners, that would be 1 right of way permit that covers all the right of way, and then 5 separate sign permits for each of those locations.
Got it. Okay.
So I hate to be hung up on this, but I'm still hung up on the realtor situation because I think that's it's a fairly unique situation for them because, you know, and they have a very good tendency of being self-policing. I mean, they go out, they put up their open house sign. When their open house sign's done, or when their open house is done, they pull up their sign, they throw it in their trunk. They don't leave that stuff laying around. So I want to make sure that as much as possible we can accommodate that industry in this code. And I assume that you've read the letter that they sent. So
I mean, we've had, like I said, this has been a discussion topic throughout, and you know, what was presented to you was they can place signs in the public right of way in residential zones for free throughout the city. Once it got into commercial zones, it's hard to carve out a specific use and give them a right that no one else gets.
well, isn't the multimodal mixed use zone at least partially residential?
Not in the way we are addressing single family. It is a mixed use zone where residential is a component of it, but it is not zoned residential for the way we're addressing uses. We think of R10, R8, R6, which are single family zones, as our typical residential zones, versus mixed use downtown, which we consider a commercial zone.
Is there anybody here from PMAR? Would anybody object to hearing from PMAR right now?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners, my name is Darrell Winan. I'm the Governmental Affairs Specialist at PMAR, and I'm the one that submitted that letter to you. First of all, thank you for this opportunity. With respect to the A-frame signs in the mixed use, we are suggesting that it also be limited to the specific hours as is allowed within residential, that Tuesday for that very short time frame, for that weekend. It could even be limited on the weekends to, from 10 to probably 4. There's very rarely, there may be late night events, but even if you limited it for a couple hours, I think that would address the issue of worrying about too many signs in that area throughout the entire weekend. It's an open house, which is a very limited period of time. It's usually going to be a couple hours, set up, greeting people, letting them in to see the condo, so your citizens can buy and your potential future citizens can come in to sell the property and to see that property. So with those time-restricted limitations, other cities do that. They do allow that. I would have to double-check, but I believe Portland does allow that within that downtown Pearl area without permit, without purchasing that annual permit. So that is primarily my comment with respect to that. Otherwise, with respect to the sign code in residential, we are in support.
So you say other cities, you aren't sure about Portland. What do other cities around the metro area do?
They are allowed within the public right-of-way. I believe there are 8 cities. I have submitted that information previously to the Planning Commission during our participation in the Community Action Task Force on the sign code, which cities do allow that, and for that very limited period of time.
Mayor, I just want to make sure we're clear that when you say allow, do you mean allow for free without regulation or
That is correct.
for permit? Okay.
And I can certainly provide that to you, but I believe I've submitted it previously.
So, Mr. Conkle, why can other cities do that and we can't? Maybe it should be Mr. Kavais.
Well, no, I think that how do we differentiate? So let's just say we do that.
Yes.
That means any sign can be placed there. I'm uncomfortable.
Okay.
Bill, you can talk about putting in our code, real estate signs can be placed in commercial zones between X time and X time. Right? We can't.
Well, but on the other hand, what is the likelihood of somebody needing to put out an A-frame sign on Tuesdays from 4 to 10, or on the weekends? I mean, as long as we don't advertise that, basically the real estate industry is going to be the only ones that really know about it.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, I'm not asking that there be content required in this, that it be strictly limited to an A-frame temporary portable sign for those specific hours.
So it's a very temporary.
It
It's
is
a
a very-
different category. It's a temporary restricted.
Portable A-frame sign, designated as specifically for that type of sign, not the content.
And also, the other A-frame signs, so like in commercial zoning designations, they have hour limitations on them as well, so they have to come in every night. So in some sense, they're a little portable too.
Mr. Kabaisman.
Certainly can be done. You know, I mean, the thing to think through is the implications that you're already doing. You know, what happens during election season? What happens during?
Well, that's coming next. So,
Well, you know, these signs aren't restricted by content. That means that if somebody wants to put the A-frames out there,
Right.
they can be anywhere and they can do anything. So, you know, I mean, there are implications of changing one thing that go elsewhere. And, you know, the simple answer to your question, yeah, the city can do it.
I guess.
And I don't want to be the but I am going to give you the worst case scenario, because if we're going to say we're not going to during these hours, we're not. You can go put you can put an A-frame out there, and you're right. Is it likely that someone will do it? Maybe not. But someone could, if they so choose, go out there and put as many signs as they want out there, because we are not regulating them.
Okay. So I guess my opinion is that rather than trying to find a problem in search of a solution, that, you know, we do it this way, you know, make the hours and whatever, and then if we have an issue and it becomes an issue, then we can find a way to change the code to fix that. But I really don't see this as becoming that, and, you know, this particular industry is important, and it's going to be especially important to us over the next 8 years as we do the Willamette Falls Legacy Project and the Cove Project and some of the other things that we're going to do up on Beaver Creek Road. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's really striking that balance between being business friendly and really trying to abide by a sign ordinance that, you know, respects the beautifying the city and
Yeah,
not cluttering
the challenge
it up.
is
really that
it's kind of
balance.
everybody friendly. That's what it's not just business. It's you're all in or you're all not, and that's
Well, and
the whole thing about content. And we can watch it and see how it develops. As the mayor's suggesting, that's certainly an alternative.
Well, maybe friendly wasn't quite the right word, but more
Yeah.
to make sure it's not too restrictive,
Yeah.
that it's going to damage industries.
Right.
So one of the differences we had between the residential zoning designations for signs in the right of way and non-residential was for the non-residential, the hours were Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday between noon and 8 p.m. daily, and from 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Tuesday. For signs in commercial zoning designations or non-residential, we required the permit, but it was to allow a greater time period from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m.
So I think if we took the suggestion from PMAR, we just let them do that on the Tuesdays that they're requesting, and obviously it's open for everybody from, you know, that short hour Windows hour. What were we talking?
2 to 3 hours set up and showing the home.
So
And
are we
then
talking a
breakdown.
specific time frame?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's up to the realtor, but typically they don't conduct open houses until later in the morning and early afternoon.
So if we went 10 to 4, 10 to 6, would
Yes.
that be sufficient?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Tuesdays, and then the same for Friday or for Saturday and Sunday, right?
So if you, just to clarify, so if you put up a sign during that time period, you wouldn't need a sign permit, but you could do the longer 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. with a sign permit in the right-of-way and commercial zoning designations, or we're just
Yes.
restricting hours?
Yeah,
10
all
to
we're doing
6?
is adding a slot for
Okay.
those specific times on those specific days
For non-permitted,
for a non-permitted A-frame
Non-regulated
sign,
in the
and
right
it's
of
still,
way.
but it still has to be, you know, the size restrictions are still there.
it's going to be on an honor system.
Well,
They're not gonna
yeah,
check
I think we get that, and then if, you know, like I said, if it turns into a problem, then, you know, we'll have to look at it again. But as far as I can tell, and I've been living here for some time, generally speaking, realtors treat these signs as the tools of the trade. And I know I don't leave my, drill and hammer and stuff just laying all over the place. I pick them up when I'm at the end of the job. So I think they treat these things the same way. Mr. Smith.
I apologize for going where I'm going right now, but
Oh, no.
okay, here's one thing that I would like to kind of think about as we're discussing this. There's many components of this that have been a shock and have been kind of a huge debate in terms of definitely when it comes to content. So there's 3 areas that we've talked about in the last month or so that have really been an issue. One, sandwich boards, banners, right away banners, cross street banners, light pole banners, and murals. So in all of this discussion, we've basically said, with the exception of murals, we're going to let it go until it's a problem. So
Correct.
why is it okay to do that in those scenarios and say we're going to stop murals right now? We're talking about the same thing. If we're gonna let it
Are
happen,
you going back here?
huh?
I was, okay.
Well, I'm just making the point. Are we going to be consistent or we're not going to be consistent? And I think it's hard for us to say in these categories we're going to just let it go until it becomes a problem, but in this category we're going to say no. I have a problem with that.
Well,
And I understand the points that are being brought up, but I'm trying to weigh that.
let me answer, at least in my opinion, where we're at with that, and that is that unlike banners and the street things,
They're temporary.
a mural has a tendency to be permanent.
Right, got it.
And so by the time we figure out that the content is, say, less than child friendly,
Right.
it may be too late. Whereas if we have a banner or something, maybe we only have to deal with that for the week or so that they're permitted to have it, and then we can figure out a way to make sure that doesn't happen again, or we just stop using them altogether. But,
If they're non-permitted, you have a chance to amend your ordinance
right.
after a while.
So I guess for me, it's the size and the permanency.
Okay.
Was that easy?
And staff did.
No, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I still have a problem with it to some degree, but some of these are such hard decisions and such. It's it's a mess. It really is a mess in terms of trying to decide whether we're just going to let everything, kind of go or not.
I know, but we have those two darn pieces of paper that get in our way: the U.S. Constitution and the Oregon Constitution. So we have to
Right.
find a way to balance that with, what we know to be our community, or what at least we think to be our community standards.
It is a more daunting task than I think that any of us realize would be, and I know there's been some people impatient how long it's taken, but I think because it's much more complicated than
The
anybody
real irony here is what Commissioner Smith identified, which is we've been consistently not enforcing the existing sign code for a dozen years or more, which led us to the place we are today, trying to do something about it. So I still think it's a noble effort.
I think that, in fact, I know that there are things on the wall in New York City that would certainly not be held to be appropriate in Oregon City.
And
So where are we at in this conversation?
April Fools. We approved it last week.
we can do whatever we want.
And we got everything we needed.
Just to follow up on that, the staff has talked to city's attorney's office, and it is a lot easier, or relatively easy, if we wanted to abandon signs in the right-of-way on our own property. Any of these, should they go awry and we want to abandon the program, to change our code on property and just our right-of-way is a lot easier than on private property. Okay, so looking at the types of signage packages allowed, so there are more signage packages because you can have lots of different options and many of different signs of those options. So we talked about single family. You're in the new code, will you allow many more signage types than you're currently allowed? And for things like these small temporary ancillary signs under 6 square feet, you may get more in the new code than you currently have. If you only have one frontage, our new code says you get 2, our current code says you only get 1. For multifamily residential zoning designations, you'll see this trend continuing. You get more signage types in the proposed code than you do currently. Here's, again, some examples at the bottom of the screen of some signage types that you'll be able to see. So all of those in combination would make up one particular property. Conditional uses are, say, schools or churches in residential zoning designations. They have to go through a planning commission approval. They have a slightly different signage standard since they're a slightly different type of use. And so they will start to allow temporary banners on those types of uses, but not in other residential zoning designations, as well as wall signs or projecting signs. Lastly, commercial mixed use and industrial zones. So this is the everything else or the commercial industrial zones. You can see there's a lot of green on the proposed, so you can get a wide variety of signage types. In the new proposed code, of these big freestanding signs like a commercial centers, if you have a large property on an arterial, say over 600 feet, you can now get 2 large signs as opposed to our current code where you can only get 1. And then you can also get a freestanding sign or a menu board type size, and then a couple ancillary as well. So a couple examples are shown on the screen for you. Non-conforming signs, just to circle back on that, our proposed code allows you to keep it if it was permitted originally, until you want to remove it. Public engagement plan, we want to make sure that if the sign code gets adopted, that we do a really thorough job telling people what it is so that they can start to self-police. So we want to put notices in water bills. There's about 10,500 customers that get a commercial and residential that get our water bills. Email notices, mailed notices, posters around town, trail news, CIC, you name it. We want to talk to them and tell them what we're doing. We also want to do a continuing education, so we don't want to just tell everybody what we're doing and then complete the project and we move on. We want to make sure that as new businesses come in, they understand our signage standards and the opportunities for signage available to them. So we're making pamphlets. So for example, when you turn in your business license for a home occupation, you'll get a pamphlet for what type of signage you can have for your home occupation and so forth. We'll have information available to them when they turn in building permits, say for commercial tenant improvements as well. The enforcement part, we want to make sure that we have a fair and equitable enforcement. So part of that is doing that public involvement campaign again so that people can self-police. Our goal is so that they learn our standard and that they automatically comply and we don't have to do any enforcement. But that might not be the case. So we've put together a plan, a team for enforcement, which includes multiple departments, 4 of them to be specific, and they've dedicated a minimum number of hours each week on an ongoing basis towards enforcement of the sign code. The code enforcement department's going to be in charge of us making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and if they're not, then they're in charge of telling you that something's working. We either need more enforcement or whatever the case may be. We want to do increased enforcement when we first adopt the sign code. So you'll see in the ordinance that it won't be effective until November 1st. So on November 1st, the city will go around to each property, survey it, see if there are signs that are not permitted, and then start to talk to the property owner. And then if they don't correct it, then we'll start to write a nice letter. And if that doesn't work, then we may work towards other enforcement violations. But the key is to get compliance on a voluntarily basis. But we'll look at each case individually through our code enforcement department when we do that. In conclusion, we recommend that you approve Ordinance 14-1003, which is the legislative file for our sign code. If this does get approved, we'll be coming back to you when we do the second reading with some resolutions for an adopted public works policy, and as well as fees to go with it, which will also be resolutions that would again be effective November 1st. Are there any questions I can answer for you?
Mr. Shaw, were you on the?
I did. I kind of, I've got to, we've kind of sat through this as a city commission a few times, but my hats are off to the planning commission for what they must have gone through here.
That's right.
And so, thank you, planning commission, for getting us as far. So, and the only thing is, and you mentioned the enforcement part of this. I know that a lot of the code enforcement issues are complaint driven, but now I see that everybody's going to play here, 2 hours here, 2 hours there. So what does that do? You get out, you go out and drive around for 2 hours and find and look and see or
Right. I think it's making that effort of, I've got building inspectors that are driving around the community constantly doing inspections,
Okay.
utilizing them while they're out there to note stuff and pass that along. Public Works is offered to assist, focusing mainly on the right-of-way. When they're public, they have a Public Works folks who are out there in the right-of-way stuff, tacked on phone poles or streetlight poles, easy stuff that's obvious. The stuff where it gets onto that public-private or on private property, planning and code enforcement are really the ones who are going to be dealing with those things. So it's trying to utilize the eyes that we have on the street to be more proactive and identify these issues and start dealing with them, or in some cases just get rid of them because they're blatantly obvious. But it is going to be a team effort, and is it going to be 2 hours every Friday? Probably not. We're going to break it up, and it's going to end up being more than that, because when we're out there looking and noticing these things, they're going to come back and start that process of the communication, the engagement, education, and enforcement. So.
Yeah, I don't have we've been at this a long time now, and I don't have any problem at least making the effort right now to get something there. Commissioner Smith said, we have a real mess here. Well, we've got a real mess right now.
Right.
This is going to at least get us an attempt to
Right.
correct the ship here a little bit, and regardless of, we've got to make the attempt, and adding Mayor Holliday's issue there, I think is fine too. When do we get to that point? So we've got
Mr.
other
Weisman.
Thank you, Mayor. Two things. One, Commissioner Shaw thanked the Planning Commission, which did a lot of work, but I think you also need to thank the Community Action Team as well, that really, Laura and Tony can tell you the hours and hours of work that went into that. Yeah. But I want to also touch base about today. We brought it to you for first reading. We've already heard at least one change to accommodate the realtors, so what we'd suggest is that we get direction from you tonight and bring it back to your next meeting for the first reading. As Laura indicated, we'd want it adopted soon, but not effective till November. So we certainly don't want to eat into too much of that window, but there's some time here to make sure we get it right and bring it back, and you don't have to listen to somebody read amended sections.
So if we're doing that, is this still a public hearing?
Yes, absolutely. We want the public
Okay.
hearing.
Did you have something else you wanted to talk about
Yes.
before the public hearing?
I want to suggest another change. Would you like me to wait?
Commissioner Pauly.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I'll make this real quick. I want to thank everybody for all their work on this. This has been a very daunting task. It's been said, this is allowing more than our current code. That's true, but our current code is not enforced. So this is really restricting what's already there, which is a good thing, because we want standards for our communities. I do, however, feel that the 1 A-frame per frontage in the rest of the city is too restrictive. We're allowing 3 per frontage downtown, where the frontages in most cases are much smaller than up on the hilltop and other areas where the frontages are very, very large. And allowing 1 for a span that goes blocks and blocks and blocks, to me seems out of proportion and not quite fair for those businesses. We are going to see a big reduction in A-frames, only allowing 3 per frontage. So I suggest that we change that 3 per frontage throughout the city to make it, to have some fairness there.
Mr. Conkle.
This is a policy decision that the commission should consider when,
But why is it different downtown than the rest of the city?
certainly. So this was the discussion. Originally, it was one per property, regardless of how many public entrances, regardless of how many buildings, in the right-of-way. And then the discussion was, well, our mixed-use downtown zone and our Willamette Falls district are different in the way they're designed, the way they function. They're more pedestrian-oriented. It is slower vehicular traffic, and that is where A-frames are very effective. And so then the discussion and the change was made at the Planning Commission to allow up to 3. So if you have 2 public entrances, you can have 2 A-frames. If you have 3 public entrances, you can have 3. If you have 4 public entrances, you get 3. So we maxed it out at 3. But they focused it on what we considered our most pedestrian-oriented zoning, which was mixed-use downtown in Willamette Falls. The concern was, are allowing multiple A-frames up on Beaver Creek Road, where the speeds are much faster, appropriate for that built environment, and so that was the decision making that went into the recommendation that you saw.
I still disagree. I think there should be 3, because if you look at like Berry Hill Shopping Center, that's one frontage all on Beaver Creek. That is a long way, and only 1 A-frame for those 30 or 40 businesses to have. I think that's too restrictive. 3 is still really restrictive.
But
But at least it's across the board throughout the community.
the question is somebody going to actually use an A-frame on Beaver Creek Road in front of Berry Hill? Or is somebody going to use an A-frame in front of Centerpoint there at at Malala and 213?
If they do, they'll pay the fee, and that fee goes towards enforcement.
Mr. Smith?
I would say that they probably aren't currently using A-frames because they're using the tall, skinny feather, flags, right? Which won't be the case.
Correct.
So I could see, if we allow multiple A-frame signs in all of the city, we're going to see a ton more of them because that's going to be the only other outlet or replacement of the feather flags. So I could see a real change over there. I guess I'm a little concerned about having A-frames just absolutely everywhere because of the points that Tony raised, and that I guess I could see it in 7th Street corridor, probably.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to remind, and without trying to advocate one way or the other, because this is really a policy decision for you, but some cities believe that on larger commercial properties where you have multiple businesses, to avoid sign clutter and to make the most use out of freestanding pole signs or other large signs on buildings, they have policies in place to try to discourage individual, whether they be flags or discourage that, and instead encourage a billboard basically on a freestanding unit that has multiple businesses on it. And Commissioner Paula and I were even talking about the likelihood that, particularly in some of the downtown businesses, that you'll have businesses sharing an A-frame sign, for example. So some cities believe that is a way to consolidate signage, just like you see on the freeway sometimes when you see 5 or 6 businesses on a freeway sign. And they try to encourage that because they believe that reduces sign clutter.
So
Right now, we don't have any reductions on sign clutter, so anything to me is going to be an improvement.
And I guess it's thinking about this in the whole, and I think that's what Laura was trying to show were the options. Because, like for example, a freestanding sign. So most of downtown, their frontages are less than 50 feet. So even if they could get a freestanding sign in there, the display area shall not exceed 25 square feet. Okay, but if you're, let's say, up farther up on the hill in a commercial zone, where the street frontage is over 200 feet, the display area is 150 feet. So while they don't get as many A-frames, they get a much, much larger freestanding sign. So it was, when looking at it in whole, were why some of those recommendations came the way they did.
So, I'm sorry. So to accommodate Commissioner Pauly, we could go to the 3 per street frontage for the entire city, and if it turns into a problem, then we can resolve that problem later by making it more restrictive for those locations.
We could, or we could also have the discussion just doing it up until Malala too, to keep those corridors, so downtown corridor and midtown corridor. I mean, it is up for discussion, but I know there are businesses in on Warner Milne that use them in right away, so.
And I guess-
They are being used.
So
I just
as
wanna-
part of this discussion, I think you should declare your potential conflict here.
Yeah.
Starting to narrow it down there. Cheryl, you know, we don't want a Malala, but we come on.
Yes.
But I think that, you know.
Hang on. I want to let Carol. I want to let Carol
Probably
do
get
this
the-
because I want it to be. It's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
I do think it should be citywide. I really do, for all business. But I do have a business in the Midtown area.
Okay.
And so that is most likely a potential conflict of interest
Yes.
in that you know, it's not necessarily going to be to your financial detriment, but there's also something known as a class exemption. You're one of a class that is affected by this, and so you can still participate even though you may have that potential conflict.
Mayor, if I might, I want to say something about this, not about the potential conflict, which is the compromise, the position. We talked to Commissioner Pauly about this, and you just suggested that could be a possibility of going up 7th. It's called
MUC1.
MUC1. Because when you look at the structures in that area, they're more similar on setbacks and other features to pedestrian downtown orientation than other places in the city. So we would like to have a unanimous
How far?
consensus on this.
How far up the hill are we going, Tony?
Can, Laura, can you show them?
MUC1 is this orangey color here. So here's Warner Milne, here's Malala. So it's this 7th Street corridor. There's a dot of it here and there, but
So it goes
for the
all the way
most
down
part-
Warner Milne.
yep.
So it's a
So one side of the Safeway mall would be on a street frontage, right?
So
Safeway is zoned commercial, it's not MUC1. So
Safe-
Well, but the
Safeway's the
the
red.
north side of Warner Milne.
oh, so it's the north side.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yep.
see.
It's the where the churches and
Oh,
apartments.
that's the very definition of gerrymandering there.
For large commercial
Yeah, they
properties.
Yeah,
It's
it
nice.
is hard when we're discriminating like that. I'm more comfortable with just equal use.
For large commercial properties, we've also said if you have more than 600 feet on an arterial, that you get 2 of those large freestanding signs. So we think that may solve your problem for things like the large shopping centers, like this one on 213 in Beaver Creek and so forth.
Where are you at, Commissioner?
I think we should hear the other comments.
Okay.
And I just want to, and I'm sure the commission's aware of it, that when we talk about they'll get 3. They'll get 3 if they have 3 public entrances. And you'll only get an A-frame in the public right-of-way if the sidewalk is wide enough to allow for ADA. So most of our sidewalks are 5 foot wide, which would not accommodate a 2 foot wide A-frame and a provide ADA. So I just want to throw that little caveat out there.
But they could make a skinnier A-frame.
Certainly.
Skinnier and
as they want.
if it holds up in the wind. That is.
And the other thing we did is
So it's like a telephone pole.
those A-frame signs can now go on private property where they can't right now, but
Right.
the proposed code they will. And you'll get more of those smaller signs on private property than you could now as well. You'll go from 1 per frontage to 2 per property.
Okay. So I'm going to open the public hearing on planning file 14-1003, a ordinance amending the, not amending, introduction for Buildings and Construction, Chapter 15.228, Signs of the Oregon City Municipal Code, Sign Code Update, Legislative Planning File 1401. First up is Bob LaSalle.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Bob LaSalle, and I sat on the Citizens Advisory Team for the sign code, and there's been a huge amount of hours put into this project. You're putting a lot of hours in right now, and I would encourage that it be passed as soon as possible. My main concern is enforcement. At the first meeting of our team, I said at the time that if we can't be sure there's going to be some form of enforcement, I don't want to even be involved in the rest of the meetings because it'd be a total waste of time. So I'm going to give you a little ammunition, I hope. On January 21st of 2012, the subject at the Commissioner retreat was increased sign code enforcement. At that time, Mr. Frazier said $60,000 would pay for a part-time code enforcement officer. I'll keep that figure in mind, $60,000. Mr. Frazier recommended that all the efforts discussed, the acquisition of a part-time code enforcement staff, would be the most beneficial. And then he went on to remind the Commission that it would require acquisition of the enforcement officer to accomplish the sign code enforcement. That was back in 12, and I'll give a copy of this for the record and for each commissioner. In the 2014-2015 biennial budget on page 123, it states, in the 2014-2015 budget year, the funds allocated to the trolley program, and that's why I wanted you to remember the $60,000, because they said the trolley program cost about $70,000. Okay. Funds allocated to the trolley program will be reallocated to the code enforcement and parking budget to support an additional code enforcement officer. This will directly impact and enhance the scenic and other aesthetic qualities of the city, as it will free up the resources to monitor and enforce ordinances that have been overlooked, such as the sign ordinance. So, to the best of my knowledge, this person hasn't been hired yet, but it's in the budget. So, that's what I have to say about that.
Well, there are often placeholders in the budget that we don't actually spend money on. So there are several places that I can think of right off the top of my head where we've put a placeholder in for something that might come up, but there wasn't any point in hiring the new code enforcement person to do the sign code until we have the sign code.
I agree, and I think that once the sign code is passed and approved, that I would recommend that you task staff to put this person in place in a specific amount of time. Say 60 days after the sign code is approved, or 90 days, whatever. But it's, at least it was intended in the budget to provide this person.
Okay.
Thanks for your help on this too, Bob, all your time you put into it.
Thank you.
Mayor, you might want to keep in mind that the quotation of my discussion of $60,000 doesn't contemplate all that's required to enforce the code that you're envisioning this evening.
Right.
It's going to be more than that.
And I want to be clear that I don't tell you who, or we don't tell you who and when to hire or fire people. So that's what we pay you to do. Amber Holbeck and Tom Guile.
Good evening, Mayor Holliday and Commissioners. Amber Holbeck, I represent the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce. And forgive me, today, or this evening, my perspective is feeling like there's a lot of restrictions on business because I spent my day in Salem. So that's why I'm coming with that particular perspective. And so with that in mind, I'm thinking that at least your direction, maybe moving up with I think it was the MUC1, is probably a good direction to go in terms of increasing that opportunity. There's great examples of all kinds of locations in Oregon City where the backs of buildings are towards the street side. There's other examples where they are sandwich shops and cafes that run a special. There are chalkboard signs that they change those things from time to time. And if you're going to nail them down with one A-frame per public entrance?
Yes.
Frontage is what the language is. Frontage.
We're going to be at a point where one special, the very first business that gets their permit money in gets to hold that spot for how long?
That's a good question.
And so I guess I know that this is a challenge as we look at the equitability, the fairness, the equal opportunity from top of the hill down to the bottom. But I'm not yet comfortable with what we have at this point with some of those opportunities. There's just not enough that you can do with one monument sign or shared sign for a complex that really can say, look, we've got some great specials here. Why don't you come on in? So, and also with regard to other larger scale signs, we do have the larger frontage up above, up on the hilltop, but those signs are often very, very cost prohibitive. So, something else to keep in mind. And I would like to just throw in my 2 cents that between the work of the community team, the planning department, the planning commission, this is not an easy job. And I'm just very thankful there were folks that were willing to step up. So that's what I would like to share.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Goff?
Well, now that Amber said everything I was going to say, actually, I hadn't planned to come before you. My first time before you, Mayor Dan, the commissioners. I was taking some notes as I was listening to the earlier conversation, and I've been one of those on the Planning Commission who was quite concerned about the limitation on signs in front of businesses. I know in our particular instance down on
Main Street?
Main Street, thank you. I got so many notes here, I can't even think my own street. We have 3 entrances, 3 different businesses, but one landlord upstairs. And that landlord does not particularly allow anything on his awnings. He's got nice black awnings, so we can't put anything on there. So the only option that our 3 businesses have, well, he's the 4th, but he's upstairs as a lawyer, is to have the sandwich boards, the A-frames out front. Now, that brought up a situation recently. We were discussing what could we do if there were not A-frames or there was limitations. And then we thought, well, I didn't remember. I read through the documentation today of the sign code, and I was thinking, okay, what if this person has an awning there? Can we attach something to the awning on a temporary basis that's a banner just to the awning, because that awning is already there? I don't remember seeing that in something in there. And I was talking to Jonathan today, long distance in Atlanta. So that was one thing. Can you put something on, attach it to he doesn't want anything painted on it, but can we attach something to an awning? Because we constantly hear, since I moved in down there, they can't find my store, even with an A-frame, because cars park there. So we thought maybe putting something up on the awning that we could tie temporarily to it. That was one thing. I'm still I don't remember when we went through this on the Planning Commission of frontage. It was more of property owners. So I was trying to get frontage. Is that still the landlord, the owner of the building, or is that frontage for each store? So when you were talking about that, I wanted to kind of see if that terminology has changed since then. Another thing that came up, I thought, I'm not sure if it's in there, but what about signs on vehicles? Like during campaign time, we often see signs on vehicles that park or drive through the city. Is there something that addresses that? I drive a hearse. Is that considered a sign for my store? David Frazier was talking about freestanding signs with several different ones, and I was thinking of like the hat shop that has sales. And of course, if you have one of those freestanding and ones that's a tall one, she couldn't put her sails on there. It would just be permanently hat shop that direction. And the last thing I was thinking about is Berry Hill. Berry Hill, there's a few signs out there, but there's a lot of kids waving signs for oil changes out there. So I'm not sure if that's even covered in there, that you can have someone, you may not be allowed the feathers, but can someone stand out there and wave signs on a street corner like they do at all the oil change places? That was just some thoughts I had.
My guess would be that's free speech.
Yeah.
And so those issues that I just was thinking of, nothing major, but I was thinking, can we use awnings and put something to those? And define frontage, is that still the same as the one landlord who owns the property, and things like that I was not sure on.
Thank you, Mr. Gile.
Thank you very much.
Okay, having no other speakers on my list, I'm going to close the public hearing. What's your pleasure, folks?
I think we're not taking a motion now. We're actually moving this to the next meeting.
No, I
Is that
think we
correct?
need to give
direction.
some direction to staff about any last minute amendments we would like to make.
We'd like to try to bring it back a clean version.
Okay.
Yeah, the
Just
ideal
adopt
thing
it.
is get a consensus or even vote, but not an actual reading of the ordinance, so that
Okay.
we know what you want to see next time through.
It appeared there was consensus on the initial topic of the real estate, that we'd taken those notes. Where you left it before everyone testified was Commissioner Pauly had a concern, and you all were debating what to do there. And that's what I think that's the only direction remaining that we
Yeah,
need.
right now we're not going to regulate signs in the right of way on Tuesdays from 10 to 6, Saturday, Sunday from 10 to 6 in commercial zones, industrial zones, essentially all non-residential zones. We're still not going to allow murals as was proposed at the last one, and then the question was essentially take the existing mixed-use downtown zone language for A-frames and apply that citywide in all commercial non-residential zones, or just MUC1 or MUC1, MUC2, whatever the commission decides.
Can you live with yourself with MEC1, or are you stuck on going citywide?
I think MEC1, it's equal treatment for like businesses through like corridors. Areas that are walkable, areas that you would be able to actually have a sidewalk to put an A-frame on. People can still put A-frames if they're in a mall out there, because that's not the public right-of-way. So I think there is a difference. I can see a difference. And one thing about A-frames in walkable areas is it lets people know when they're open, when the store's open, specials. And I took a Metro class about street front, how to, liven up the street fronts and make it more homey. And a lot of it has to do with A-frames. And this is really restricting them by having 3 per frontage. So I think this is a balance in those mixed use, in those areas.
So MUC1.
MUC1.
Okay.
Can we all live with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's your consensus.
Thank you.
Okay.
We will make those changes and bring it back.
I was just going to say, and I think the other thing we were discussing was to maybe put, if you'd like to, revisit this if there are issues identified. If we're hearing things, if we could, when we adopt the ordinance, we could say we could revisit this if necessary, and we'll pick a date certain, so we don't have to go through our whole noticing requirements again. And if we are getting, or you're hearing things, or we're hearing things, or we just shut it down.
Because we're going to have a fairly lengthy, this is not going to be
Yeah.
a standard enforcement protocol, so if I were recommending it to you, I would say let us work on that education piece, slowly begin to enforce, and then, we'll ramp that up as it goes forward. And if we see a problem, or you see a problem, or the community sees a problem, let us know, and then we'll bring it back.
All right.
Okay. So, with that said and out of the way, Carol, I think you're going to take your leave here.
Yeah.
Let's take 5 minutes, and then we'll come back. And I apologize, Chief Charlton, but I'm going to put you on next because you've been sitting out. Fred Charlton from Clackamas Fire District 1. Mayor Neely? Chief?
Well, thank you. Happy April Fool's Day. Again, Fred Charlton, your fire chief, and tonight we want to talk just briefly about Measure 3-466. This is a general obligation bond measure that our residents will see on the May 19th election, and we sort of wanted to walk you through that, and I know you have a tight agenda tonight, so I'll keep my comments fairly short. We've been working on this strategy for about 2 years now, and this is the front page of the Clackamas Fire District Number 1 webpage. This is really the window to our living room. So on the upper left-hand corner, we have the bond measure, and if we can click here, this takes you to our bond measure page, and we certainly believe in transparency and providing as much information as possible. So on the left-hand side, we have informational brochure, Fire District Strategic Business Plan, our fiscal budget, and then some information about apparatus and vehicle replacement. Also, what's important to us is not a one-way conversation, so we do have an Ask Questions button to get feedback from the community. So if you'll bear with me for about 3 minutes and 11 seconds, we've put together an informational video that we'd like to play for you tonight.
Clackamas Fire District Number 1 is an internationally accredited all-hazards fire district whose daily mission is to safely protect and preserve life and property. Whether it is a residential fire, motor vehicle crash, or serious medical emergency, our highly trained firefighter paramedics are prepared to take immediate life-saving action. Clackamas Fire District Number 1 is the second largest fire district in the state of Oregon, protecting nearly 220 square miles and serving the communities of Beaver Creek, Clackamas, Clarks, Happy Valley, Johnson City, Milwaukee, Oak Grove, Oregon City, Redland, South End, and Westwood. The communities of Boring, Barton, Damascus, and Eagle Creek are also currently provided fire and emergency medical coverage through a 5-year contract for service to Boring Fire District Number 59, which began in July of 2014. Over the last 5 years, there has been a steady rise in the number of calls for help that our firefighter paramedics respond to. In 2014, our firefighter paramedics responded to over 19,000 requests for help from our 20 strategically located community fire stations. Clackamas Fire District Number 1 is funded through a permanent tax rate of $2.40 per $1,000 of assessed value, and a general obligation bond that was voter approved in 2000 at 11 cents per thousand. Due to increased assessed value within the fire district boundaries, the annexation of the City of Oregon City and the City of Milwaukee, taxpayers will notice the current bond rate to be 6 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. The current 15-year bond will be paid off in June of 2015. In May 2015, Clackamas Fire District Number 1 will have a general obligation bond measure on the ballot. If approved, the funds will be used to enhance safety and service delivery by addressing and improving capital needs. Funds will directly pay for the replacement of emergency response apparatus, upgrade communications equipment and infrastructure, purchase self-contained breathing apparatus for firefighter health and safety, construct and equip a fleet maintenance center to repair and service our emergency response apparatus, redesign and replace our training center complex, upgrade and improve community fire stations, facilities, and infrastructure, and add or replace community fire stations to include purchasing land. The proposed general obligation bond has an estimated tax rate of 10 cents per $1,000 of assessed value, an increase of 4 cents over the current rate. A property with an assessed value of $300,000 could expect to pay $2.50 per month, $30 per year, or $450 over the life of the 15-year bond. For more information, visit us at clackamasfire.com or call our administration building at 503-742-2600.
Thank you very much for that. So with that, we've been out since January scheduling public meetings. We've been meeting with city council, civic groups, neighborhood associations, CPOs, homeowner associations. I think we have about 100 meetings planned from the first or the end of January through the 1st of May. So we just wanted to come before you tonight and show you the video, talk about what the fire district is seeking voter approval for, and then certainly answer any questions you may have. Also, I brought a stack of trifolds, if I can leave those with staff for you and possibly out on the front counters.
And once again, I apologize for making you wait for an hour to do that, but
Happy to.
thanks.
So any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them. If not, I'll let you move on with your agenda.
I'm up now, so.
Mr. Shaw? I didn't sir, I was on the other side.
Thanks, Chief. Hey, I noticed a kind of a pie chart in one of your, I think I looked through one of your presentations there, and it looked like 3/4 of your calls were on medical. And trust me, last thing I want to do is, tell you how to do your job at all, because you guys are doing great. But I think the city of Portland went through this to where they kind of looked at that medical call thing and said, well, do we need to send a truck and 4 guys out on a medical call? And they kind of downsized to a smaller unit with 2 guys. What's the value of that? Does that work at all? Or
Sure. So I think there's probably a couple questions in there. I'll try and group the answer together. You're absolutely right. There are different deployment models. Currently, we deploy from fire engines, ladder trucks like we have next door, and then even smaller medic units, and we guarantee a paramedic on every one of those units. Our calls for service, so those 20,000 calls, about 67% are medical in nature. Grouped within that could be anything from cardiac arrest that may take 4 or 6 firefighters and American Medical Response, to a headache which may, or in some cases, could take 2 firefighters and not require transport. We're trying to find some balance as we see the calls for service continue to increase, and we also want to make sure that we can send a unit to meet every one of the needs when you call 911. In many cases, we may not need 4 firefighters. In other cases, we may need 20 or 30 firefighters. So the way the fire district is positioned with our fire stations, I think our next steps are to look at the gaps, if there are any gaps between fire stations, and maybe look to place a smaller unit. But as you come together with 11 consolidations and mergers, fire departments were sort of built in the center of their service area because that's what they knew at the time. And we can't wipe the map clean and recite 20 fire stations. So you're absolutely right, and I appreciate the comment. I think we have to look at different ways to deploy. We're working on a pilot project right now, and it starts this week, to go out and utilize community health in a way to go visit what you would call somebody who uses the system quite frequently, and go out and try and do a proactive conversation with them to get them the right help instead of always having to send a ladder truck or a fire engine to their emergency. So there's different models. There's 1-person unit, 2-person, 3-person, 4-person units. We try, though, if we can send a fire engine with a paramedic, we know that we can respond to a fire, a cardiac arrest, a motor vehicle crash, or anything in between.
Okay. All right, yeah, because I didn't know if in your appeal for apparatus whether there was anything new in there that, other than just standard equipment and stuff, instead of maybe looking at smaller units. So.
We're looking at replacing 15 fire apparatus, and that's going to be from fire engines to medic units. We're talking now, could we deploy a single paramedic in a Tahoe, for example? A Tahoe costs $35,000. A fire engine costs $525,000.
Yeah.
So we are looking at creative ways, but this is a difficult fire district to serve because we're urban, suburban, and rural, and we have to get across the entire district fairly quickly.
How is it working in Portland? You know, I mean, they've been at it for a couple of years probably now, using the suburban type vehicles, right?
Well, you know, I can't speak for Portland Fire. I know that they have added those units to fire stations where they also have fire engines, so they're deploying 2 units because those are very busy areas. And they're sticking with that plan, so I would assume that they're seeing some success.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much.
So I have 2 proclamations. See which one's which here. We have changed our rules on our commission rules on how the process for having the mayor do a proclamation, and at the same time, I'm going to change the way we deal with these, and that is I'm just going to, we'll have the official copies, we'll have a copy put up on the website, and I'm just going to say the last piece, and that is, therefore, I, Dan Holliday, Mayor of the City of Oregon City, do proclaim April 13th, 2015 as Arbor Day in Oregon City, and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day, support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands, and to plant and care for trees to promote the well-being of this and future generations. So the Arbor Day proclamation is something we do as part of our Tree City USA designation. The other one is Child Abuse Prevention Month. So I, Dan Holliday, Mayor of Oregon City, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2015 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, and call upon all citizens to increase their participation in efforts to prevent child abuse, thereby strengthening the community in which we live. And is there somebody from the Children's Center here? Okay, so I just wanted to make sure to give them an opportunity to speak if they were here, because I know that's where that came from, was the Children's Center. So, moving on to, do we want to do the website update tonight? Okay. Then let's do that. Can we make it
About 15 minutes or so.
Really?
She's been working hard to prepare.
Okay. Sorry.
We
All right.
So yeah. So thanks, Mayor. I think we are. Hold on.
No.
No, we're in order.
Now we're back in order.
Yeah, we're back.
Okay. Sorry. I Yes, come on up. Sorry.
I just wanted to introduce Caitlin Essig. She has been helping out in economic development. She's been doing everything from working on social media to helping with marketing campaign with our partnership with the community college. She's part of the RARE program, which is also part of AmeriCorps, and she came to us in September on a year contract, and I wanted to introduce her to you guys before she actually left in September. So she's been here for a while, and she's been working hard. So she's got a quick presentation for you on some of the work she's been doing. So.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you, Commissioner Holliday, for having me this evening. Again, my official legal title is RARE AmeriCorps Volunteer. RARE is short for Resource Assistance for Rural Environments, and this program, again, is through the University of Oregon. Specifically the city or the Community Service Center. I am one of 25 individuals across the entire state. We are located from Brookings to Enterprise and from Lakeview all the way up to Astoria. So we do work from economic development to local food projects to master plan work. So it's been a pretty great experience being able to come here. So I just want to give a little intro on me. I'm originally from Illinois, specifically the Springfield area, which is the capital. I just completed my master's degree in May from the University of Illinois with a degree in sustainable development and policy. And I have been living in Illinois my entire life, and so I just kind of was ready, after going through school for 6 years, I was ready to go on an adventure. So I found the program and ended up here. So again, I'm going to be talking to you about the things I'm doing in the finance department. April Fools, I just want to make sure everyone's still awake out there. No, I am doing stuff for economic development. This is a list of things that I've done since I've been here, and I'm just going to kind of go backwards in order to keep a decent flow of the project, of the things that I've been doing. So when I first got here, I started working on the developer forums right away to kind of build an open communication and build some transparency between us and the developers and the community. We had 25 attendees come to the first one, and the end results and issues that were kind of brought up were time, certainty, and attitude from us. And I just kind of took the information that was brought from that meeting to discuss some key topics that we could talk about over the next year. So we kind of have a rough draft, and we're going to have quarterly forums. In fact, the first one is next week on Wednesday. So after I did the developer forums, it was kind of one of those things where sitting back thinking, what could I do personally to help with this? Just from my studies and with the program in mind as well, is kind of to try to build some community support with businesses and all that kind of stuff. And what do so many people spend their time on? Social media. So I thought it would be a great way for us to be able to build some transparency, build an online community. I spent some time going through the businesses, liking the businesses, and then we've been able to use this as well to kind of get the word out about projects that we've been doing for the city. So other departments have used it as well. It was great use whenever we had the boulders fall on Singer Hill Road, suddenly at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. So it's been a really fun tool. I think we've really enjoyed using it for the department use, getting information out about our events and other departments as well. Going to what I've been working on presently, has been the industry cluster analysis, and basically this cluster analysis determines what businesses in the state, county, and down into the city are prospering and how can they kind of work in accordance with one another as well. So what I'm doing is tagging the business licenses that fall within these clusters, and I'm going to put them on a GIS map so that we have a visual of which ones specifically fall within these clusters, and use that for future uses as far as getting more businesses in the area and be able to have that information on hand. Again, Eric mentioned the enterprise zone. We all know that we got the bond designation back in December, and so we got the enterprise zone designation in December, and then the bond measure was also approved for Clackamas Community College for their advanced manufacturing building. And so we wanted to partner, and we met last month to kind of start this partnership with the community college to work on the Beaver Creek site for marketing that piece of property, because what kind of industry wouldn't want to come in, be able to have their industry and have their employees be trained right across the street in a brand new beautiful facility. So I think it's going to be good for that area and getting industries into the area, and hopefully we'll have some positive successes in that. And then finally, the website development updates. The Economic Development Department was kind of built from the ground up several years ago, and since then there's just been information added to the website, but there hasn't really been a whole lot of reorganizing. So I spent some time reorganizing, picking out the key areas and good things that are on the website to kind of get that available and easy access again for people, because again, we're in the age of information where people want easy access to information. They want it quickly before they will ever pick up the phone and call anyone nowadays. So if you wouldn't mind clicking. Thank you, Katie. So I've got a new banner up there from the photo that I took of downtown Oregon City over the holidays. That was kind of a big hit on the social media as well. But in regards to content, I shortened our menu so that kind of cut out the middleman. And under business resources, we moved the business licensing information from the finance department website over to our department. I added the maps from OC Maps to kind of give that opportunity for business people, business prospectors to come in and be able to use OC Map and the great work, and also show off the great work that the GIS department has done. And then I also added a downtown Oregon City page as well, because I think that businesses are coming into the downtown core, really appreciate having the Main Street organization, nationally recognized Main Street organization, having that support there for people that are wanting to bring into a business. Economic strategy I didn't really do too much with, but that's there. And then under urban renewal, the previous intern put together a ton of information on the great things the Urban Renewal Commission had done in the past, and that was kind of tucked away within the folders, and so that wasn't really displayed. So I moved that up onto the main page, Urban Renewal, so that you can click there and see everything that's been done in the past few years. And then I also shortened the grant programs positioned so that basically people can go on there, look exactly what grants we have, what the credentials are, the application, and who has also already received grants in the past. And then finally, as most of you guys have already seen, I did the before and after facade improvements webpage. That was a bit of a pain to do with the website design, but I definitely think it was well worth it. And going through and kind of displaying all the work that has been done. And when I was going through the stuff that was in the urban renewal section as well, there's a lot more cool before and afters with the Riverwalk. And so it was great because I put in all this time and effort, and then I was able to put it out on social media. I got a ton of great feedback from the community. And then I was able to email all of the participants, the property owners. I emailed them as well, told them that this was there. So there was a lot of positive feedback. And I think that it's good to kind of keep this community building going on and being a leader as the city and displaying the great things and the changes that we're doing here in Oregon City, because otherwise we're going to, continue to be unnoticed, and obviously the Willamette Falls is coming. So I think it's a great job to be prepared and be proud of what we've done so far. So
it's great.
That is it. Does anyone have any questions?
Commissioner Shaw?
Well, no, she had me at the University of Oregon, so, I knew we were in for a good time here. So.
April Fool.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thanks, Caitlin.
You guys have a good evening.
Okay, so in deference to Maureen and her consultant, I'm going to rearrange the agenda again. So let's take 15-185.
Thank you, Mayor Holliday and Commissioners. I apologize if I was being rude and pushy.
No, you don't.
No, I do. I do. And especially to Caitlin, I apologize. That was a really nice presentation, and she's done a lot of great work. That before and after page is amazing.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So anyway, tonight we are here. This is our architect, Joan Jasper from Scott Edwards Architecture, who you've talked to in the past. And we wanted to give you an update as to our progress, as well as ask you for permission to move from design documents to construction documents. So it's one of our contractual arrangements in the contract, obviously, that you approve us moving through these phases. So would you like to take it away?
Okay.
And I'll just jump in whenever.
Thanks again for the time. I was happy to wait, but thank you, Mo. So Joan Jasper with Scott Edwards Architecture. I think we have pretty much just good news. We just issued the 100% design development set, which has probably got about 60 more sheets than the schematic design development set had. We received HRB approval. We have received site plan design review completion, and I believe the notices went out about a week and a half ago, and so we're on track there. With this and with the 100% DD, we'll be getting a cost estimate back April 8th, which with our schematic design cost estimate, we were on track, and it was a conservative estimate and well padded with contingencies. So we feel like we've got some room to wiggle, but we're still being cautious. But pretty much, everything's schedule's going according to plan. We, with the 100% DD package, reviewed that from an exterior, interior materials finishes with the library building team, and they were pleased with what they saw. We also gathered up all our consultants, especially like MEP Structural Civil, and went over all the building systems with the library building team so that there's a kind of a depth of understanding, of what the building systems are going to be, and I think all of that was met favorably, and they would like to, we are staying on track and continuing forward. So what I have here, this was a rendering that was done for the DJC kind of celebrating the new project. So you can see the Carnegie and you can see it with the addition. And it really has not changed, really not much at all, not in building footprint, not in height, not in materials from the SD. We're just adding detail and clarifying that all the pieces work. Because the addition is on the back of the Carnegie to preserve kind of the iconic front, we're really, the front door to the new library, to the consolidated library, is the plaza. We're calling it the Library Plaza, and it's taking the existing spray park and really kind of celebrating it with a new circular bosque of trees, existing trees, and cutting through so that we kind of open up the circulation throughout the whole park. So again, we've just really been developing. This is showing, stormwater requirements, existing trees. We've met on site with arborists. The relocated playground here. We've been keeping MNA. We've been going to the monthly meetings, keeping them abreast, and so pretty much just continuing the development, of the project. These were in the DD. Well, in this, we put together for them the materials and finishes, and site furnishings that we, expect to see on, and will specify on site. Everything from bike racks, tree grates, with maybe a more decorative, pavers, drinking fountain, and then playground.
I just want to jump in on the slide back there. Some of the playground equipment is still up for discussion, and we're actually going to McLaughlin Neighborhood Association tonight to present an alternative, a little bit more natural alternative to a plastic slide, because they were pretty set on a metal slide.
Hear, hear. I am too.
Okay, well, we've got some other ideas.
Okay, and again, like I said, we went over, all the different materials with Parks Department, for, a keen eye towards maintenance, and being able to care for what we're specifying. We'll be changing a few things, but not much, so we've been getting input from everybody.
Can I hold you here for just a second?
Yes.
So, the trees that are coming out, has there been a discussion about what's going to happen to those trees?
Well, so most of the trees that are coming out are diseased Dutch elm, and so those have to be gotten rid of the appropriate way. They cannot be reused because they're diseased. No, you can't use them for anything because they'll spread disease.
So you're telling me that they can't, that disease is of such a devastating quality that we couldn't kiln dry those things, and that wouldn't kill it?
That's right. We cannot reuse the Dutch elm at all.
Okay, so are all of the trees diseased that are coming out?
All but one.
All but one, and that one is under discussion for being dried and reused.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's hugely
And that ties
disappointing.
into the play equipment proposal tomorrow.
Could tie into it, yeah. It's disappointing, but that's what the experts
I find it
tell
hard to
us.
believe there isn't some way you could treat that to
No, they have.
We
There's
understand.
mitigation rules on that. In the way that they're disposed of, because if they go into landfill, then they can contaminate more. So, that's been an ongoing discussion.
So if you can't burn it, you can't put it in a landfill, what do you do with it?
I think very good question. I think you burn it under controlled conditions.
Okay, moving on.
Okay. Again, some more images. We have done since schematic design. We've been working with Energy Trust of Oregon, working a lot with incentives for payback. One of it, though, is with the SEED program. We did a solar assessment that was paid for by ETO, and it is a viable site, and we will be having a solar array on top of the roof. Kind of just another image of kind of the stormwater planting, and then if right now we're carrying an alternate for green roof on the front porch. The covered walkway that goes into the library. We're still trying to assess the viability and cost of that. All right. This was part of the interior presentation that we gave to the library building team. This is looking at the atrium, looking back at the Carnegie. Presented this to HRB, the Historic Review Board, so you can see where these were existing windows, and we're cutting out the brick below, leaving the lintel, and then creating kind of stopped-in glass with a bench on either side of technology and atrium. So we're really creating a dialogue between the new addition and the old.
As well as creating a sight line for staff to be able to see into that room.
Lower level floor plans, again, we've just been developing the functionality of the library. This is staff level here with staff only entry here and storage, mechanical, etc., and then staff area.
So where the ramp is now, the stairs going down will become a staff only entrance. And then actually where the ramp is, it'll be ramping up to the new building also.
On the site?
Yeah, outside, yeah.
Okay. So again, first level floor plan. Really, again, the idea is to restore the existing Carnegie, take out track lighting, put in new bowl lighting that's more indicative of the period, refinish the fir floors, restoration of the windows, etc. Make it a little more airtight. We've been working on all the mechanical systems, both from an energy standpoint as well as space and structural limitations with the existing. Here is kind of the vestibules off of 7th, off of 6th. There's the entry porch. Walking into this atrium, we're thinking of creating kind of the fir floors will continue into the new addition to key in the Carnegie. We'll be using an end grain fir because it's a little more durable. This is the children's area here, children librarian office, service point and holes, and then the multi-purpose community room here with the core elevator, restrooms, etc. So again, kind of dialing in things, but no real change from schematics. And then the second floor, coming up the main stair here, again, that will be kind of continuing the wood flooring. We've got nonfiction, fiction, service point here, fiction, audiovisual, and then teens area here with their little conference room, and then what we call a maker space, which can either be a conference room, craft area, 3D printer, and then the main bay window that looks out over Jefferson.
And then 2 offices and a study room.
Can we go
Yes.
back downstairs for a second?
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about having the community space be wired for television?
For audiovisual, for recording, etc. That
Yeah.
studio space is right here with a window.
Okay.
It's been kind of
That
colored
answers
in, but
that
there's a
answers my
window
question.
there.
Great.
And again, this is separate, both mechanically and spatially. Roll down door here, and after hour entrance there.
Right.
Okay, and looking back into the atrium, Mo's been really active with the Clackamas Arts Council, starting to get them in
Starting to get it, yeah.
on art, thinking of a hanging art or sculpture in the lobby area. And so these were precedent images that we were showing to kind of give the tone of the interior. Here is an existing Carnegie where they've actually taken out the second floor and created kind of a dialogue between the main level and the lower level. So what you're seeing here is kind of that juxtaposition between old and new. And you can see here. So again, we, both for interior and exterior, are really taking kind of the character of the Carnegie and do not want to have a major shift from old to new, but really kind of taking the character and details of the Carnegie and carrying that through the edition so it really becomes just one library. So again, kind of, the older style windows, kind of the white envelope, carrying in the metalwork, but yet more modern furnishings, etc. Service desk, here's the big bowl lights. It's very similar to what we're proposing. And then, this is like a balustrade where, I guess in 2000, they did a half wall in the main Carnegie room, and we're not going to replace the stair, but we're going to restore the balustrade to make it look more period. So again, here's the idea for lighting that would be in the Carnegie. It would be this style light, but this style finish. And then maybe in the reference, so again, just kind of picking up on the classical tones. And then moving in, kind of this reference, with the same kind of tone of metals and reading lamps, kind of blending those two. And then this would be the main, this is indirect lighting for the main stack areas. So it's pretty background, not making a big statement. Oops, excuse me. Kind of some lay-in ceilings. So this was because we went through all the different materials with the library building team. Again, this is the interior tone, where you're taking and repurposing kind of an old building into a new use, kind of a living room style. Turn of the century, we're looking at using subway tile with maybe just a slight twist. Even kind of the mosaic penny tile floor, incorporating that into signage. So again, I think really celebrating the Carnegie. And then the idea of bringing in some art, that's pertinent to library and adding some visual interest. We have a signage consultant on board. They've been looking at the site. So say for here, these are the existing stanchions along 6th and 7th. But redoing the placard for the new, right now I think it says Carnegie Center, taking off the Carnegie Center here and restoring it to its original, and then at each end of the library porch or covered entry, we would be putting library. And kind of a flavor, again, taking the cues from the interior. This would be some of the kind of more traditional based signage for the interior. And then what we did, if you would like, what we put in your package was just showing this is the select drawings from the 100% design development, which are actually kind of our working drawings. But what it was is you can see that nothing has really, it's just a more developed building from schematic. So the elevations look the same, as what we presented in SD. Our budget, is concurring that we can build it, and then kind of sections, so these are construction documents, so they are showing what we are actually proposing to build. And so we will be moving into CD based on y'all's approval.
Any questions?
No question. Oh, I guess I have one question. But
Commissioner Smith?
This is so exciting. It just keeps getting more exciting. And so seeing these makes it a little bit more real.
Very much so, yeah.
I'm really impressed by it. The only question, which is not that big of a question, there's been several hints as to possible Ermatinger piece.
Oh, with the wood from Ermatinger.
Yeah,
I'm not sure where that's going to go.
Okay, so we did the general no plan, but we have
we have lots of opportunity. We have I guess on the second floor well, we have a lot of countertops, and we call them laptop bars.
That would be a really great place, actually.
And
it goes around the edge of the atrium up there.
Yeah, they go right here and here, as well as, we also have not really decided where we've got wood paneling and or not. I think from the, I'll go back.
We have a couple tables we could make out
Yeah,
of some of that
there's
stuff.
lots of opportunity, but I was going to go back to the interior. I can't. This one here, it's hard to see, but we've got these wood slats, and those could also, be purposed from the Ermitinger. So there's lots of opportunity. We've got these benches, etc.
I was just, one of the reasons I brought that up, I think I talked to Maureen about this as well. With the Ermitinger House reopening at some point in the near future, hopefully, and the new library, I think it brings back a core, central part of the city that we've kind of lost for a little while with the synergy between Pioneer Center, the library, and the Ermitinger. So I think that reference is a nice connection to bring those pieces together. I love the fact that we're bringing in, the light fixtures and the old building into the new building. We've always talked about in what ways that's a good idea and what ways that's not a good idea. Just to see that carried through the whole building, I think pays honor to the original structure, and especially the way that the back end of the Carnegie ties in with the whole building. I can't wait till it's done. It's so
too.
incredible.
Okay, so do we need a motion on this?
We have
a citizen comment.
Citizen comment.
Sorry. Mr. Gifford.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
You better like it. No.
Yeah. You have 1 minute. You got 1 minute, William.
You have 3 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners, my name is William Gifford, and I live in Oregon City, and I am really excited about this design. I'm really, really excited about the design. I had a concern, and the concern is, call us quirky if you will, but when Joyce and I travel, we like to visit libraries. We like to look at the architecture. Weird?
Joyce is like, yeah, right.
Now. And while we're there and we're enjoying the architecture, we talk to staff and find out what works, what doesn't work about particularly the newer buildings. And we found a very large library in Las Vegas that the staff said the difficulty that they had with the high ceilings were twofold. One was the difficulty in maintaining the air conditioning, because all the heat goes up, so the people upstairs are toasty, the people downstairs are freezing. You heat it up for the people downstairs, they can't stand it upstairs. And I just want to make sure that we have adequate circulation, and the AC, the HVAC is really tip-top to be able to maintain a higher level like that. The second concern that they had about the open level is the noise factor, and especially since we're going to be having basically the kids area downstairs, which I think is a great idea. But if the noise level downstairs, because I know libraries are no longer quiet zones, that it's okay to talk, but if the youth get rowdy, then all of that noise is going to be going upstairs as well. And I just want to make certain there's some acoustical concerns about how that's going on. And those architectural concerns aside, Joyce is pointing out that there were some comments made about how this design is fitting into this whole core area of the fire station, the Pioneer Center, and so on. Yet there wasn't a mention made of the church across the street.
Right.
And I think that architecturally that's a dominant feature in the neighborhood, and I think that needs to be taken into consideration when we're talking about core buildings in the area. So
Right.
those are my comments.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, William.
So that would take us back to my comment from a month or two ago, and that is that some of those light fixtures that we see in that core atrium area appear to be inaccessible for replacement. So just if you guys keep that in mind, there has to be a way to change the light bulbs.
We are LED throughout, so that will help.
But even LEDs, you got to change them once in a while. Maybe it's only every 10 years. But Mayor Neely?
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Mine is a question. Is there repurposing of the basement of the current library? Maybe I missed it.
Yeah, that's where the staff is going to be. And so it's going to be a lot nicer than it is now, though.
What's my question?
Yes, we've been working on making it as nice as possible. We're taking out the existing ducts, and then we'll be creating a wall with the ducts on the inside. You know where the foundation is now? It will just go straight up, and that will hide new ducts that will connect to a really quiet system. And yeah. And it's just, we've worked really hard with these guys to make sure that it's a really nice space. So, you know, downstairs will be staff only accessible. There won't be, it will be all their space. There will be 2 restrooms for staff. There will be, we're turning the family restroom into like a quiet room like they have here in City Hall, so people can have some privacy. There will be actual staff lunchroom there. And then the storage will all be off on the side, really organized and clean, and they'll be able to work so hard because it'll be so nice.
It was so great when it was a children's center and we had a haunted house there.
We could do a haunted house in the new children's park.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
Okay, so now I will entertain a motion.
I would like to make a motion. I would be, and I'm just happier than heck to do this, to move 15-185, request to move into construction documents phase from design development phase of the library project.
Second.
Yay.
Moved by Commissioner Shaw, seconded by Commissioner Smith. I assume there's no more discussion. Call the roll.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
and Mayor Holliday.
Aye.
Right. Thank
So-
you very much.
Back and forth, up and down. Aflac. Back to 15-190, Resolution 15-03, calling a public hearing for the creation of a new economic improvement district. Mr. Underwood.
Thank you, Mayor. As you might recall, we attempted to renew the EID as its boundary set in November, which failed due to receiving over 33% remonstrance as regulated by ORS 223-117. However, the downtown organization has gone back and redrawn the boundaries and restructured the assessment rates, and this has resulted in a new EID district. And so we're bringing this before you tonight to approve or call for a first public hearing to review the new EID. So this is just the first step in the process, and then if this resolution is approved, then we will have the first public hearing on May 6th. And then we will send out notice for the second public hearing. If we do not receive more than 33% remonstrance from the property owners in the district, we will hold that second public hearing, which is scheduled for June 17th, and then the ordinance would become effective July 17th. That, and I believe we have the chair of the board of the downtown organization.
So
here
I would
tonight.
call to your attention, there was a late addition to the exhibits, the letter from Mr. Nickerson. It's on the end if you haven't seen that. Take a quick look at that, but basically it says that they reworked it, went out and talked to everybody and kind of got everybody on board, and they
Right.
they're pretty certain that they're going to have a very low remonstrance rate coming forward on this. So with that, I will open the public hearing for Resolution 15-03. I don't have anybody on the speaker list. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak? Then I will close the public hearing. Roger, do you have something you want to say?
Yeah, thank you. City staff, commissioners, Mayor Holliday, I'd just like to say in the last 2 months I've had a chance to be board chair, and over the past 2 months we've beat the pavement, talked to our clientele, opened a new form of communication, and our three rules are communicate, communicate, and figure out your SOP, how to get the situation run correctly. We've redesigned the EID to be a true Main Street design from Blue Heron clear through to 16th, and we're going to stick as Main Street as our main function area. We've changed the board makeup. In review of the plan, since I've had previous experience with a Main Street situation, I found out that both our the setting up of the board and many of the updates of our rules and regulations had not been taken care of, and I found about 8 of the areas that are not allowing us to work smoothly and to carry on business. So I have 8 special commissioners out there that are bringing us updated information in the next 30 days. We've lowered the assessment by 50% and changed the EID boundaries again to emphasize that we want to have a clear position, a clear view from Blue Heron clear through the end of Main Street, and will allow us to keep that service and our client base more informed of what's going on. We're going through a new budgeting process and training our board to be more communicative. Talk with your clientele. Don't just talk at them, talk with them. And we found that through coffees and lunches and etc., they're more than willing to tell us what we should be doing or where we should be going. And I think it's helped open up what we call Downtown Oregon City Association into a more viable and a more focused activity. Board training is very important, and we have the 4 areas that we cover, keeping up our constitutional association with Main Street. So we work on membership, and we work on design, dealing with walks, flowers, displays, and then we deal with the promotion. And one of our big pushes right now is getting people aware of what's going on and how it's happening. And like the city has done, our digital footprint has just about doubled, dealing with Facebook, website, and Twitter. And we found this to be very helpful. I think I feel confident that we've done due diligence in our work with our clients and the clientele downtown, and I hope that this will set up a whole new day for Oregon City Main Street.
Thanks, Roger.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roger.
Questions, concerns, thoughts?
Thought. I just want to thank you and all of the board on downtown and everyone that's been working very hard on this kind of relook. I think, we all have seen how important downtown is and the things that are happening. I think, just looking at Caitlin's before and after photos of her storefront grants, etc., that's one piece of it. But so I really appreciate the work that was put in the last few months just to bring this back, because it's so crucial to not stop the progress that has been made in downtown, the progress that we know is leading to a downtown that's going to double, hopefully, in size with the mill site. So I really appreciate that work because I know it was a lot of work, and I don't want to be too critical of this one point, but I think the only thing that concerns me just a teeny bit is that the whole focus was definitely Main Street at the beginning. Then the re-imaging kind of to talk about downtown and the name change for the downtown, and then the maps going back to Main Street. So, I understand why that's happening, but I think it's a little bit of a mixed message. But so I hope that doesn't prevent us from moving forward and really seeing the potential that we all know the entire downtown has. And I think as projects like Willamette Falls comes to fruition, I think the downtown will become stronger and it'll grow, and I think that'll happen. So I'm excited about that, and I just appreciate all the work that you're doing. I know Jonathan's out of town, but I appreciate the work that he's doing as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Roger. Good job.
Thank you.
Yes.
Motion? Oh, hold it. Yeah.
Yeah, you move to approve the resolution, which will set the public hearing on the actual district in May, first meeting in May.
I'm trying to find it.
It's 15-03.
Brian, do it.
All right, I'm going to move for resolution number 1503, calling for a public hearing on the creation of a new economic improvement district.
Second.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Shaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Mayor Holliday.
Aye. So, can I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Mayor, can we do the public comment first?
Oh,
Before we go
sorry.
there? Yeah, that's okay.
It's been a confused
It
day
has
today.
been.
It has.
Do we have anybody on the public comment list? Well,
That's easy.
That resolves that. And that's got to be a first, too.
Yeah.
Motion to consent agenda?
Oh, move to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Shaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Mayor Holliday.
Aye. So we are now down to communications. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a couple of quick items tonight. First of all, as you know, the Oregon City Police Department held their public house or their open house, a public open house at the department this week, and Captain Clear's here instead of Chief Band, and he's going to give us a short report on how that went.
You didn't send Greg to do this?
Greg's on vacation, oddly enough. As you're aware, the CSAFE is a utility fee that we're proposing that would pay for the new public safety facility. Just want to give you a quick recap of what we've been doing the last month or so. As Mr. Frazier mentioned, last night we had a open house at the PD. Had a great turnout of 45 people. Chief Band gave them a presentation about the CSAFE utility fee. It was received very well. March 19th, Officer Willard gave the presentation to the Rivercrest Neighborhood Association, and tomorrow I will be giving the presentation to the Chamber's Government and Economic Affairs Committee. Chief Band giving the presentation to the Hillendale Neighborhood Association on April 7th. April 16th, Chris Wadsworth will be giving the presentation to the Hazel Grove Association, Neighborhood Association. On the 23rd, Chief Band will be giving it to the Gaffney Lane Neighborhood Association. So just capitalizing on the team effort that we're out there educating and trying to get feedback from the community. And so far it's been a great effort, great team effort from OCPD, and got a lot of positive feedback and been able to spread the word and educate. So it's been exciting.
Very good.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
And next up, Mr. Lewis from Public Works has a, I think, brief update on the Union Pacific Bridge replacement project.
You want me to be brief?
Yes,
After all this other
I do.
Stuff? You want me to be brief? Well, and Commissioner Pauly's gone, so this is a piece that's important to her. So
Time's up.
maybe we'll give her a. Bottom line is we've been talking to TriMet about service increases, And we heard this week about some of their planning, some of the public involvement that's been solicited with regard to the what used to be called the PMLR service plan. Now they're basically calling that the Orange Line bus service plan. So what we heard this week was that when the Orange Line goes online in September, that the bus changes in Oregon City will result in some significant changes, not so much in route changes, but in the amount of service that comes to Oregon City. So they gave us numbers like 79% increase overall in busing in Oregon City. So the existing lines that run in Oregon City are going to be running a lot more frequently. And that includes the 33 and the 31 line. Now you'll be able to get on the 33 and the 31, and they're going to be you'll be staying on the same route, so you'll be able to go from Oregon City to the new Orange Line Transit Center in Milwaukee, and then stay on that same bus and go to the Clackamas Town Center, and vice versa. So that's a big improvement. The 33 will be going to the community college on every trip, as opposed to much less what they had before. So they gave me some pretty big numbers. 33 and the 31 will go from 524 trips to 800 trips. The 99 McLaughlin Express is another route that's pretty important to Oregon City. It goes from Oregon City to downtown Portland, and that will go from 95 trips to 155 trips. It'll have a slightly different route, but you'll be able to stay on the 99 and take an express route all the way into Portland. So
they're not making you disembark and get on the light rail?
That's where many people will go, and they're going to encourage people there, but they're going to continue to have a route from Oregon City all the way into Portland.
Okay.
It'll go by way of the Selwood Bridge, which is a little different, but the timeline's pretty similar.
I have
So
a feeling this
bottom
is
line
like
is
introductory rates on a credit card, but
bottom line is we heard a lot of good things. The Park Place neighborhood is going to see an increase. So that's a good piece. The other thing that I wanted to mention is the Southeast Service Enhancement Plan, which is more about beyond the Orange Line changes, because they're basically moving a lot of that bus transit that was kind of on the Portland side of Milwaukee, and they're transferring that out to Oregon City and other areas in our service area. But the Southeast Service Enhancement Plan is right now at the gathering information mode. So they have actually they've got another survey out there. It's important that our community, I think, drill into that survey. It's an online survey. The website is future.trimet.org. It's about a 5-minute survey. I'm a little slow. It took me 7 minutes. But we got to get our responses in by April 8th is what I'm hearing. So they're looking for guidance information from the communities. And that maybe go longer. What at April 8th was, if you get it done by April 8th, you get a chance to win $50 in transit passes. So if you're interested in that, you can get there. So that's it for now. It's just, I think, a lot of pretty good information from TriMet, and I think they listen to the communities about some of their needs.
So when I went to that TriMet thing at the Abernathy, the one thing that I heard loud and clear was that we needed to have more frequent service from the Holcomb area down to the transit center and back. Is that anywhere in that?
Right. So that'll go from 10. Right now, it's at 10 trips per week to 28 trips per week. So yes, it will increase. Whether it's enough, I don't know, but it's significantly more than what we've got going there now.
So, anything else?
Mr. Gifford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Commissioners. My name is William Gifford, and I live in Oregon City. The comment that I wanted to make was that I'm not sure that TriMet understands the potential impact of what was just happened tonight at the Urban Renewal Commission of an additional possible 100 to 200 riders on TriMet when the Cove is developed. And I don't know if we're communicating that to TriMet.
We have been communicating that. In fact, it links.
But now we got a reality.
LinkedIn's my
Not
report.
yet.
Just
We're a step closer.
We've only improved our side. Ed still hasn't signed off, so.
So we've actually been talking to TriMet on a different level, which is about the transit center and the need for more layover. All this busing, additional busing, means some layovers, and there's not a lot of room down at the transit center. So we actually took them on a tour and showed them Dunes Drive and the spot there, John Storm Park, and the trolley turnaround is a possible option for them, bringing them around Dunes Drive, looking at parking along there, talk to them about that development. So I do think that they're hearing that information on a variety of levels. But they can hear it again, William, if you get online and you fill out their survey. Yeah, there you go.
So, are we talking about completely relocating the transit center?
No, we're talking about needing additional layover parking for the buses that come into the transit center. They're maxed out right now, and there's not a lot of options downtown.
So basically, you have to stack them somewhere.
We've got to stack them somewhere, and they got needs too. Their drivers need places to take a break.
Another parking issue on Main Street.
So, John, before we close my reports, the only thing I want to ask is that if you can consolidate some of those thoughts in a summary, because Commissioner Pauly isn't here, and that would also be a helpful document for the rest of the commission to have in a summary form, so we can get that out.
Could you give me that website again, too, John, please?
The website is future.trimet.org.
Thank you.
Well, I think it would be good for us as
I can send you links to that with that email.
When's our next work session?
2 weeks.
So can we put? Is it packed full?
It's pretty full.
I think so.
Can we put 5 minutes on it for the commission to have a discussion about? Because I think we could get it done in 5 minutes. We could put together a letter and send it to TriMet from the commission stating, what it is. Because we kind of get lost if we're just taking the survey online. But if we send them a letter, an official letter.
Mayor, why don't I have Public Works draft up a letter, that version? We'll send it to you. If you like it, then we'll distribute it and then have it on for approval on your consent agenda.
That's perfect.
Next time around. Yeah.
But I want to reemphasize that I think we need to probably need to quadruple the number of trips that are going up to the Holcomb area. So from 10 to 20 doesn't make it.
28. It is almost quadrupling. So this is
10 to 28 a week.
A week. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking we need probably 4 or 5 trips a day up there to get. We're forgetting that those people who are up there, the great majority of the people who are up there who are using transit probably don't have a car, they don't have a lot of money, and they need to get back and forth more frequent. I mean, we all come and go from our houses more than once a day, most of us. So, okay. Is that it, sir?
Yes.
Commissioners? Nothing for you?
We had South Fork. We had work session. People from all over the region talking about water rights, and it was just a work session, kind of an education piece. And had an Friends of the Ermatinger meeting, and have another one with Scott and Matt Davis on next week. That's it.
Shaw?
Continuing my efforts on the library building committee, and then also attended the OCBA, where Mr. Frazier gave us a talk on the past and present future of Oregon City, which was enlightening, probably to some of the members that were there from another jurisdiction, but also, and as Rocky was saying, did go to South Fork and kind of learned water rights 101. Went to the county cities dinner that was at the Eagle Creek Saloon, clear out in Estacada. I was going to suggest that for a retreat space, but we can't go that far anymore, so I guess so. But that's a great place if you've ever been out there. So there was a representative from the college there talking about all the cool things that are going on at the college right now. So, and I've been selected to do the National Prayer Day on behalf of the commission, which is coming up. And, you know, I've asked a few people about anything like that, and all they could tell me was pray for the mayor. So I've got to. That's all I got. So if you guys have any.
Next to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
If anybody's got any other things you want us to pray for on the National Prayer Day, come and talk to me. But other than that, that's all I got, sir.
Okay, then. So I had a busy week this week. Cute.
April Fool's, dude.
Yes. Katie, yeah, I should have known. Last week, we got an email from Blaine Meyer, who was concerned that the state legislature, the House Ways and Means co-chairs, had removed funding for the Amtrak's Cascades lines in the upcoming state budget. And so I got on the phone on Friday and talked to every one of the mayors who has a stop along the route, and we got letters from everybody but the city of Albany, I think, stating the mayor's or the city's support for the Amtrak Cascades lines. And then I went down to the legislature and actually testified on Monday, and we heard today that that funding is going to be restored in the budget, so we won't be losing our Amtrak Cascades. And then today I was invited to join the Portland City Commission's meeting, and where they approved a resolution and a proclamation supporting reopening of the Willamette Falls locks and their support of the Willamette Falls Legacy Project. And so I got to spend a little time in front of Mayor Charlie Hales and Nick Fish and the kids, and so that's what's going on. And I think that's